I wish I knew, Judge, but I don't know.
James,
Judge, I think it looks like it's coming from the defendant in this case. I don't know if potentially he has two screens on.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes, ma'am.
do you possibly have screens open or something like that?
I don't know.
all right. Mr.
Judge,
Garcia,
who
please
is-
raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be
Yes,
the
Your Honor.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right, put your hand up, sir. You were originally charged with DWI. Is that going to be what he's pleading to, Ms. Pollard?
No, Judge, we're moving to waive and abandon count 1 and proceed solely on count 2, obstruction of a highway.
The state has a motion to proceed on count 2. Mr. Ortersdorf, any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Garcia, for the record, you are now charged with obstruction of a highway, passageway, or waterway. There is a significant difference. Do you understand that? You're muted right now. Just unmute and answer. I did not hear you.
Hear me now? Sorry, this
Very good.
must be the phone.
Very good. Before I proceed, go ahead and mute yourself while I talk. There you go. Before I proceed, it's important that I explain certain rights and protections that you have in this case. Are you hearing what I am saying? The first right that you have is the right to remain silent. That means you do not have to make any statement. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to submit written paperwork that has your signature. Do you understand you have the right to remain silent? Mr. Garcia. You're muted right now, sir. Do you understand you have the right to remain silent? Once again, we're going to discontinue this plea until this matter gets straightened out. Mr. Oltersdorf,
Yes, sir.
get with your client and see what we need to do to get this matter straightened out technically.
Yes, sir. Can I go in a breakout room with him?
That's up to you, sir.
Well,
Ms. Garcia,
Mr. Garcia,
Patty, can you place him in breakout, please?
Yes, sir, I did. Judge, I don't know why this gentleman, it says Alcatel Lumos on there. I don't know why he keeps coming back in.
Mr. Lumos, or a person who is using the name Alcatel Lumos, would you unmute yourself and tell us what your purpose is? Mr. Alcatel Lumos, do you hear me? Can you remove him, Patty?
I have Judge and he keeps coming back in.
Well, keep taking him out until he decides to talk to us.
And Jose Reyes is on there too, Judge. I'm not sure why he came back in.
I'm waiting for Mr. Piker. I talked to him on the phone and he said that just to hang on tight and that he would jump onto the Zoom meeting as soon as he could.
And Your Honor, just to remind you, he's got an active warrant. It's on a bond increase on this case.
Do we know why?
Pretrial services.
Are you aware that there's a warrant for you, sir?
Yes, I talked to Mr. Piker this morning and he said that it was due to missed blows because I would miss I work late at night and I would fall asleep. I wouldn't blow at 7, but I would blow at 10. I mean, I would blow at 12, 5, and 10 p.m. and I wouldn't miss every day. It just happened like 3 times and she said that it was too many violations, the pretrial bond officer. and that's why she's, I guess that's why it was due to missed blows.
Okay.
But I talked to Mr. Piker and he said that he was talking to the DA and he was we were gonna take a plea and just to hang on tight onto the Zoom meeting and he would join in as soon as he could to finish up, I guess, whatever the deal is, he has spoken with the DA, he said.
Okay. You didn't know that you had court this morning?
I called and they told me to get on the Zoom meeting. I told them I had spoken to my pretrial officer and he said that just to get on the Zoom meeting and that we would handle it from there because he said that I was gonna take the offer for 60 days.
Well, very good. As soon as he gets here, if he gets here before noon and it's already 11:34.
I can try to give him a call back off the meeting. Thank you.
All right. There's like somebody finally got the hint, Patty, on Mr. Lumos or Lumbos, whatever the hell he was.
Okay. we gotta try.
Yeah, he tried logging back on and I didn't admit him.
Very good. Mr. Otersdorf.
Yes, sir. Let's, part of the problem you and I both thought was with Mr. Garcia was that he was, well, he was muted, but it's apparently that he was having actual trouble hearing. So he's going to plug in his phone. He says it's fully charged. We've turned off everything electronic in the area. It may be where he is. He is located outside of town, I believe. And he's going to put his hand up to his ear if he can't hear us, because that's what part of the problem was about his responses. And he's going to mute himself when you're talking. So we'll see if that prevents the echo. And
Mr. Garcia, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now, sir.
Very good. I have sworn you in, is that correct?
Yes, sir. After I raised my,
I
Couldn't hear
explained,
you after-
I explained your rights and your protections to you,
Yes, sir.
but the right to remain silent. Did I explain to you that you had a right to a jury trial?
That's where it froze up and I couldn't hear nothing.
All right. You have a right to a jury trial. That means you and your attorney and the state could select 6 people from a pool of citizens, disinterested citizens, to hear this entire trial on this matter and decide whether you're not guilty, or they could decide that you have been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. You understand you have the right to a jury trial.
Yes, sir.
If you go to trial, the state must present witnesses to prove up their case. You would have the right, you and your attorney, to question, cross-examine, or challenge any witness who would testify. That's called the right to confront witnesses. Do you understand you have that right?
Yes, sir.
In addition, you have the right to appeal. That is a motion where you yourself or your attorney or the 2 of you together could demand that a higher court review the official record of this proceeding, the evidence and testimony, etc., to decide whatever legal challenges you wanted to make. That right has technical requirements. It's got time limitations. It's got form and substance requirements, but nonetheless, you have the right to appeal. Do you understand you have that right?
Yes, sir.
And by the way, Ms. Kayleen Rivera is my court reporter in this court. She is making an official record of everything that's said in this proceeding. Also, you have the right to demand an open public hearing in the public courtroom. That right at this time is not being granted because of the COVID pandemic. But in order to proceed in this matter, you have to consent to doing this by the internet, or what's called video conference. Are you consenting to this? Have you signed a document to that effect?
Yes, sir. I believe it. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, did you review the documents that have your signature in this proceeding? Did you review them with your attorney and get his advice and guidance?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions that are not answered?
No, sir.
Mr. Altersdorf, did you in fact review these documents with Mr. Garcia?
Yes, sir.
And are you satisfied that he understands what he signed?
Yes, sir, I am.
Did you yourself sign an affirmation saying that you agree that the state has complied with Article 39.14 in reference to discovery requirements by law?
Yes, sir. Discovery has been provided completely.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia. The state has a motion. State,
Yes, Judge. On this one, we are moving to waive and abandon count 1 and proceed solely on count 2, obstruction of a highway.
defense, any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
There being no objection, the motion is granted. Mr. Garcia, you are no longer charged with DWI. You are in fact charged with obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway. Do you understand what that is?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, it is a significant difference. Is there going to be deferred on this, Ms. Pollard?
Yes, Judge.
All right. For how long, ma'am?
This one is 12 months.
All right. To the charge of deferred, to the charge of obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, how do you plead, sir?
Sorry.
To the charge of obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, how do you plead? What is your plea? Guilty, not guilty, no contest.
No contest.
You understand that a no contest plea in this court is considered a guilty plea
Yes, sir.
and is sufficient by itself, it's sufficient for me to convict you. Do you understand that? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, there's a document that you signed that's called a waiver of constitutional rights and courts admonitions. That document states in considerable detail, it identifies you, it says what you're charged with and what you're actually pleading to, in this case, obstruction of a passageway. It tells you in that document the range of punishment, which is a fine from $0 to $2,000 and jail from 0 days to 180 days. Did you see and understand that document?
Yes, sir.
That document also tells you that I do not have to accept your deal. Any agreement you made with the state is not binding on me as a judge. As a judge, I have the authority and responsibility to say yes or say no to your deal. I can also give you any punishment in the proper range, even if the punishment I give you is heavier than what you agreed to. If I reject your deal, or if I give you a punishment heavier than what you agreed to, then in either case, the law would allow you to start all over again, and nothing that you said or signed will be used against you. You start over. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you applied for deferred adjudication probation. Did you
Yes, sir.
understand the paperwork wherein you asked for deferred adjudication?
Yes, sir.
I will remind you that deferred adjudication is a written, legal, binding agreement between you and this court. That agreement is that you will comply with 100% of the conditions of supervision. In exchange, I will not find you guilty because I'm going to honor the agreement to grant you deferred adjudication. If you fail or refuse to do 100% of the conditions of supervision, then what will happen is the state may ask me to give you official notice, bring you in for a hearing. And if based on the evidence, I believe it's appropriate, then I can actually find you guilty, convict you, and then give you any punishment in the range 0 to 2,000 fine, jail 0 to 180 days. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now you have pled no contest. Based on your plea of no contest and the evidence, I find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. Instead, I am granting you 12 months deferred adjudication. And the rest of the punishment, Ms. Pollard. You're muted, ma'am.
Sorry, Judge. It's a $500 fine plus court costs. The DWI education, victim impact panel live, the TAP evaluation, ignition interlock for half the term, 48 community service hours, and $60 restitution to DPS.
Mr. Garcia, how do you earn a living?
Mechanic. I work from home mostly.
All right. What do you make in a month, usually?
Usually about $2 grand.
Do you have children that you support?
Yes, sir.
How many?
4.
Does your wife work outside the house?
Yes, sir.
What does she do?
Dog grooming.
And how much does she make in a month?
About 1,200, 1,400, more or less.
Okay. All right, how old are your children?
My son's 11 and my youngest is 4. And they're all 2 years apart, more or less.
Okay. I'm gonna set the supervisory fee at a minimum $25 a month. I'll set your fine at $500, but I'm gonna probate 200. You're granted 12 months deferred adjudication, as I said earlier. You will complete the DWI education, the Victim Impact Panel Live. You'll submit to a TAP evaluation and the recommendations. You'll have ignition interlock installed in your vehicle for 6 months. You'll perform 48 hours as community service restitution. I do not order you to pay anything to DPS. I am giving you something of a break, Mr. Garcia, only because you have 4 children. Don't make me regret that, because if I do, that means that you're not doing what you're supposed to. The state will be asking me to take action against you, and that may very well be what happens. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. You are ordered to appear within 7 days in the offices of County Court of Law number 5, where you will have to have a thumbprint placed on the official documents as required by law. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
You'll also meet with Maricela Luna. She's on this internet with us. She will get you started on the probation situation. Probation department will read to you every one of the conditions that you're going to be bound by. You will sign those conditions and they will put a copy in your hands. We understand each other?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me just say this to you. Driving while intoxicated while you have 4 children, there's many things wrong with it. One, you're out drinking to excess, which means that the money that should be spent for your children is not being spent totally on them. Also, be aware that the kind of life your children are going to have depends on the love and good example you give them, or the lack of love, or the lack of good example. In other words, bad example you give them. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you?
Yes, sir.
I expect you to listen carefully and obey what I'm telling you. All right? Do you have any questions, Mr. Garcia?
No, sir.
Mr. Oltersdorf?
No, thank you. Miguel, if you have anything comes up, give me a call.
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Pollard, any questions?
Nothing further from the state judge.